it's me. Today we're going to talk about the Lost Franklin Expedition Part 2. In our previous episode, we covered the first 3 years of the Franklin Expedition, which was an attempt by Sir John Franklin to find the elusive Northwest Passage. Franklin and his crew got stuck in the ice off the coast of northern Canada, and they were never seen again. Well, except for one guy who paddled away from the doomed ship HMS Erebus in an open boat and survived. But more about him in a bit. The year is 1848, and this story takes place near King William Island in the desolate and frozen Canadian Arctic. A lone man paddles frantically across the icy waters, desperately trying to get out of the dangerous and treacherous Victoria Strait. His name is Cornelius Hermiston, a sailor who has just escaped the fate of starvation and death that befell the rest of his crew. His mouth is parched and his skin is blistered and peeling from the sun. He hasn't slept in over a week, and he has no food other than two biscuits he ate on the journey. Despite his terrible condition, he keeps paddling until he sees land. He drags himself ashore, collapses and falls asleep under a rock. When he awakens, a member of the Inuit people finds him and brings him back to his village. And Cornelius finally gets a chance to tell his incredible story of survival and loss. You see, the Royal Navy had sent out an expedition led by Sir John Franklin in search of the legendary Northwest Passage, a sea route through the Arctic that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. But the ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, became trapped in the ice off the coast of northern Canada and were forced to abandon their mission and turn back. Most of the crew managed to escape the sinking ships and made their way onto the ice floes, where they established a camp and waited for rescue. But they soon realized that they were in grave danger. They had little food and no way to hunt or fish in the frozen wasteland. To make matters worse, the cold temperatures and lack of sunlight began to take a toll on their mental health, causing some of the men to become delirious and others to simply give up hope. And this is when the unthinkable happened. The men began to turn on each other, killing and eating their fellow crew members in order to survive. By the time Cornelius was found, only 3 of the original 129 men were still alive. Now that's one heck of a story, and I can't wait to hear more about it. Wait, what? This isn't the podcast. Why is this guy talking to me like I'm in his freaking living room? Oh, sorry. Right. Of course. I'm sorry. I've just been doing this intro for so long now I kind of just blend into the background sometimes. It's just like second nature at this point. Right. Okay, well then let's just jump right into the meat of today's episode then, shall we? All right, let's do this thing. When Cornelius told his tale of woe to the Inuit villagers, they didn't believe him at first. You see, cannibalism was unheard of in their culture, and the idea that the British sailors would resort to such desperate measures to survive seemed crazy. But after hearing more of his story, the Inuit elders realized that these men were not only real, but also in desperate need of help. They took Cornelius in and nursed him back to health, feeding him warm meat and fat, and teaching him how to survive in the harsh Arctic environment. Once he was well enough to travel, the Inuit led him to HMS Resolute, a British warship that had come to the Arctic to search for Franklin and his missing crew. When the officers heard Cornelius's story, they immediately set out to find the lost sailors, but they were too late. By the time they reached the abandoned camp, all that remained were the skeletons of the men and the haunting evidence of their fate. But hold on, because there's another twist to this tale. You see, while all this was happening, there was a group of American explorers searching for Franklin's lost expedition. They found the abandoned camp as well and brought back with them one of the skeletons. When news of the discovery reached London, the British government was outraged. They accused the Americans of stealing the skeleton and demanded its return. However, upon further investigation, it was discovered that the skeleton was actually that of an Inuit woman who had died several years earlier. This led to a diplomatic incident between the two countries. But ultimately the skeleton was returned to Canada and buried with full military honors. In the years since the Franklin expedition, much has been learned about the men who sailed on those ill-fated ships. Records show that many of them were veterans of the Royal Navy, having served in the Battle of Copenhagen and the Battle of Algiers. Some of them were even related to famous figures of the time, such as Lord Cochrane, a hero of the Battle of Algiers and the uncle of Charles Darwin. Among the crew was also Dr. John Ray, a Scottish physician who became known for his work on scurvy, and who was the first European to cross the desolate and frozen wastes of the Arctic. There were also 4 African-American sailors on board, having been impressed into service in the British Navy. Their names were August, Blackwood, Murray, and Pryor. Not much is known about their experiences on the expedition, but they are believed to have been treated harshly and were likely subjected to the same terrible conditions as the rest of the crew. After the tragic loss of the Franklin expedition, the British government took steps to improve the chances of survival for those who ventured into the Arctic. They established a series of depots along the Canadian Arctic coast, stocked with supplies such as food, ammunition, and clothing, which could be used by any sailors who became stranded in the area. Additionally, the Royal Navy began carrying life buoys and life rafts on their ships, which could be quickly deployed in the event of an emergency. These measures proved successful as no sailor has ever died of starvation or exposure in the Canadian Arctic since the Franklin expedition. As for the Franklin ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, they were lost to the icy depths of the Arctic for nearly 170 years. That was until 2016, when the Canadian government announced the discovery of HMS Erebus at the bottom of the seafloor off the coast of King William Island. The discovery was made by a team of researchers using a remotely operated vehicle equipped with cameras and other instruments. They were able to identify the wreck based on its size, shape, and the fact that it had a large hole in its hull, which matched descriptions of what happened to HMS Erebus. The discovery of HMS Erebus was a significant event for several reasons. Firstly, it provided closure for the families of the lost sailors who had been searching for answers for generations. Secondly, it gave researchers a unique opportunity to study the ship and its cargo, which can shed light on the conditions under which the sailors lived and died. And finally, it was a reminder of the importance of preserving our maritime history for future generations. Now the wreck of HMS Terror is yet to be found, but the search continues. The Franklin expedition remains one of the most tragic stories in Arctic exploration, a tale of human resilience and the unforgiving nature of the Arctic environment. The men who sailed on HMS Erebus and HMS Terror were pioneers who risked their lives to unlock the secrets of the Arctic. Their legacy lives on in the stunning landscapes they explored and the lessons we've learned from their bravery and sacrifice. So there you have it, the harrowing tale of the Franklin expedition. What do you think? Leave it in the comments below. Also, if you'd like to check out more of my content, I've got a channel where we explore all sorts of fascinating topics, from the mysterious Mary Celeste to the strange and unexplained. So go ahead, click that subscribe button and join the community. Who knows what intriguing mysteries we'll uncover next? Until then, stay curious and keep asking questions. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next one.